All right, so are you ready to dive into something that might not sound super thrilling at first glance? We're talking about securing WordPress forms.
Oh, okay.
But stick with me on this one because it's way more important than you might think,
Yeah.
especially for anyone running a business here in Australia.
Yeah, for sure.
I was reading this blog post by Now Technology Systems.
Uh-huh.
They're an Australian web development company, and they dropped some pretty eye-opening stats.
Okay.
You ready for this? A recent study they cited found that small to medium businesses down under,
Yeah.
they are the prime targets for data breaches.
Wow.
And guess what the hackers are after?
Hmm.
Online forms, those little gateways to customer information.
It's kind of scary when you think about how much data we share through forms every day.
Seriously. It's
Yeah.
like we're just handing over our digital identities without a second thought.
And the thing is, a lot of these breaches aren't about some super sophisticated hack either. It often comes down to a lack of basic security measures. Well, now Technology Systems is really pushing for password protection for forms as a starting point.
Password protection. Interesting.
You'd be surprised how many businesses overlook this simple step.
I guess it's kind of like leaving your office door wide open overnight, right?
Yeah, exactly. Anyone could just wander in and take what they want.
Not a good scenario, either digitally or in the real world.
No kidding. So password protection, it's about peace of mind for sure.
Right.
But it goes way beyond that.
Okay. How so?
Well, here in Australia, we have the Australian privacy principles.
Right.
They're pretty strict about protecting personal information. So let's say you've got a contact form on your website collecting customer data names, email addresses, phone numbers.
That kind of thing.
Exactly. If that form isn't password protected and that data gets breached, well, you could be in violation of those principles.
Oh, wow. So non-compliance is a big deal.
Definitely. You could be facing some serious legal consequences.
Yikes. So legal risks aside, what about the impact on customer trust? If I found out a company I was dealing with wasn't even taking basic steps to secure my data, I'd be pretty hesitant to give them any more information.
You're absolutely right. Customers today are a lot more aware of data security and privacy than they used to be.
For sure.
They want to know that companies are taking their responsibility seriously.
Makes sense.
So showing that commitment, even with something as simple as password protection, can make a big difference in building trust.
It's like saying, hey, we value your privacy and we're taking steps to protect your information.
Exactly. It's about transparency and demonstrating that you're taking security seriously.
So now Technology Systems, they've laid out this really straightforward 4-step guide to securing your forms.
Oh, yeah.
And honestly, I even gave it a shot myself.
Okay.
And let me tell you, it was surprisingly easy. Even I could handle it.
Uh-huh. That's great.
So first things first, you've got to choose the right plugin for your WordPress site.
Right.
They recommend a few different options, WP Forms, Ninja Forms, or Gravity Forms.
Yeah, those are all solid choices.
Okay, so let's say I've got my plugin installed and I'm ready to roll.
Right.
What's the next step in this security makeover?
Well, now it's time to actually set up the password protection itself.
Okay.
And don't worry, most of these plugins make it super user-friendly. You won't need a computer science degree to figure it out.
That's a relief.
You'll usually find a setting specifically for adding a password field to your form.
Got it. So plugin installed, password field added.
Yep.
But what
Yep.
about the password itself?
Ah, yes, the all-important password.
Any tips on crafting one that's actually strong and not just, password 123?
Haha, right. Well, that's where a lot of people go wrong. A strong password needs a little more oomph than that.
Okay, more oomph.
Think uppercase and lowercase letters, numbers, those special characters that you never use, like exclamation points or dollar signs.
So the weirder the better.
Pretty much. The more complex the password, the harder it is for those pesky hackers to crack.
Okay, but then how do I remember all those random characters?
Good point. You don't want to end up locked out of your own forms. Here's a little trick I like to use. Think of a phrase or maybe a line from a song you like.
Okay.
And then swap out some of the letters for numbers and symbols. It's way easier to remember than a totally random string of gibberish.
Ooh, that's clever. I'm totally using that one. So we've got our plugin installed, our super secret password set. What's next?
Step 3, and this is crucial, test it.
Test it. What do you mean?
Before you make that form live on your site, access it like a regular visitor would.
Okay.
Does the password prompt pop up as expected? Can you get through without the password?
You're saying it's better to catch any glitches now before it becomes a real security issue.
Exactly. You want to iron out those wrinkles before they turn into full-blown security breaches.
Good point.
Hmm.
So testing. Okay. What's the final step in this security journey?
Now it's time to spread the word.
Okay, spread the word about what?
About the new password requirement. You need to let your intended users know that, hey, there's a new sheriff in town and a password is required to access this form.
Right? So do I just blast out the password to everyone?
Well, hold on. Their partner security is paramount here.
Right.
Don't just broadcast that precious password to the world. Think secure communication channels like a separate email or maybe a password-protected document.
Okay, so no casual password sharing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You don't want that password falling into the wrong hands.
Mm-hmm.
Now, while we're on the topic of passwords, I think this is a good opportunity to remind everyone about good password hygiene in general.
Like, don't use the same password for everything.
You got it. Using the same password across multiple accounts is like using the same key for your house, your car, and your office. It's just asking for trouble.
Good point. So unique passwords for every site.
Absolutely. And speaking of upping the security ante, let's talk about two-factor authentication, or 2FA, as it's often called.
Okay, 2FA, break it down for me. What is it and do I really need it?
Well, think of it this way. You have your password, which is your first line defense.
Uh-huh.
But 2FA adds this extra layer of security on top of that.
Mm-hmm. Like double bolting the door.
Exactly. Even if someone somehow manages to snag your password, they still can't get into your form without that second factor.
Interesting.
It's like having a deadbolt A&D, a security system for your house, just to be extra safe.
Okay, so what does this second factor actually look like in the real world?
Well, it can take different forms.
Yeah.
One common method is a unique code sent to your phone, either through a text message or an email.
Right.
You enter that code along with your password, and boom, you're in. You've successfully proven your identity.
So it's like a little digital handshake.
Exactly. There are other methods, too, like authentication apps, which generate those time-sensitive codes.
Oh, yeah, I've seen those.
Or even physical security keys that you plug into your device, like a little USB stick.
So many options.
The key is to find a method that balances security with user-friendliness. You don't want to make it so complicated that people just give up.
That's true. I've definitely abandoned online forms before when the security steps felt like too much hassle.
Exactly. So it's about finding that sweet spot between security and convenience.
Right. Now, technology systems also mention something about regular password updates and even setting expiration dates.
Yeah, that's another good practice, especially if you're dealing with sensitive customer information.
Okay, I can see that.
Think of it like changing the locks on your house every once in a while.
Right.
Just like physical locks can wear down over time, so can digital security measures. They need a refresh every now and then.
Makes sense. But isn't that kind of annoying for users, having to constantly update their passwords?
Yeah, that's the downside. Forcing people to change their passwords too often can lead to frustration and sometimes even weaker passwords if they try to find workarounds.
Oh, yeah, like just adding a number at the end each time.
Exactly. So it's about striking a balance, finding a password update frequency that makes sense for your business and your users.
Right. So we've covered password protection, two-factor authentication, and the importance of good password hygiene.
We're on a roll.
Now, what about SSL certificates?
Yes. SSL certificates, those digital guardians of data encryption.
Can you explain what those are and why they're so important when it comes to online forms?
Absolutely. So imagine you're sending a super secret message.
Okay.
Do you want to send it on a postcard for everyone to see, or do you want to lock it up in a secure armored vehicle?
Definitely the armored vehicle.
Exactly. Well, that's what SSL certificates do for your data.
They're like digital armored trucks.
They encrypt the information that's being transmitted between the user's browser and your website's server.
So it's like scrambling the message so no one can eavesdrop?
Precisely.
Yeah.
And this is especially important for pages containing forms where sensitive data, like credit card details or personal information, is being collected.
So it's adding an extra layer of protection around that sensitive information.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're ensuring that even if someone intercepts the data, they won't be able to read it.
So how can I tell if a website is using an SSL certificate?
That's a good question. Look for a padlock icon in your browser's address bar right next to the website's URL. If you see that padlock, it means the site is using an SSL certificate. You'll also notice that the URL itself starts with HTTPS instead of just HTTP.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that. The S stands for secure, right?
You got it. It's
Yeah.
a visual cue that the website is taking security seriously.
It's definitely reassuring to see those little indicators that a site is protecting my information.
Absolutely. It's like a digital seal of approval.
So we've talked about some essential security measures, but what about now technology systems being based in Australia? Does their advice really apply to businesses in other parts of the world?
That's a great question, and the answer is a resounding yes.
Really?
While they definitely cater their advice to the Australian context, a lot of their recommendations are universal.
Like what?
Well, the principles of strong passwords, two-factor authentication, SSL certificates, those are all relevant no matter where your business is located.
So good security practices transcend geographical boundaries.
Exactly. They're the foundation of a secure online presence no matter where you are in the world.
So they're like the universal language of online security.
Precisely.
Now, technology systems also talks about something they call intrusion detection and prevention systems.
Oh, yeah, those are pretty cool.
Can you break those down for me? What are they? Do I need one for my website?
Okay, so imagine you have these vigilant guards constantly patrolling your website.
Right.
They're on the lookout for any suspicious activity, anything that looks like a potential threat.
Like digital security guards.
Exactly. And that's essentially what intrusion detection and prevention systems do. They monitor your website for malicious traffic and try to block it before it even reaches your forms.
So it's like having an extra layer of defense on top of everything else we've talked about.
Exactly. They're like the elite security force protecting your website from those pesky hackers.
So is this something that only big companies with massive budgets can afford?
Not necessarily. While some of the more advanced systems can be pricey, there are also affordable options available for small businesses.
So there's something for everyone.
Exactly. And remember, the cost of implementing these systems is often far less than the potential cost of a data breach.
That's a good point. It's about weighing the investment against the risk.
Exactly. And now technology systems really emphasizes the importance of finding a security solution that's right for your specific business needs.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Definitely. They offer a whole range of services, from website audits to vulnerability assessments to customized security plans.
So it's like having a personal security consultant for your website.
Precisely. They can help you identify your weak points, figure out your risk tolerance, and implement a strategy that's both effective and manageable.
That sounds incredibly valuable, especially for businesses that maybe don't have their own in-house cybersecurity experts.
Absolutely. It's all about empowering businesses to take control of their online security and protect themselves from those ever-evolving threats.
So now technology systems also had some tips on choosing secure WordPress plugins, right?
Yeah, they did.
We talked about plugins earlier, but what are some of their key insights when it comes to security?
Well, they really stress the importance of doing your due diligence before installing any plugin on your site.
What do you mean?
Don't just install something willy-nilly.
Okay.
Just because a plugin is popular or has a bunch of 5-star reviews doesn't automatically mean it's secure.
So how do I know if a plugin is safe to use?
They recommend checking the plugin's development history. Look for regular updates and a track record of addressing security vulnerabilities.
So it's like checking the Carfax report before you buy a used car.
Exactly. You want to make sure it has a clean history and hasn't been involved in any major security incidents.
It makes sense.
They also suggest reading user reviews, carefully paying attention to any mentions of security issues or bugs.
Right, because sometimes those reviews can reveal red flags.
Definitely. And they really emphasize the importance of choosing plugins from reputable developers who prioritize security best practices.
So it's about making informed choices and not just going for the first plugin that pops up in a search.
Exactly. It's about being proactive and treating every plugin as a potential security risk.
Now, technology systems, they also talk about educating employees about security threats and best practices.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Why is that so important?
Well, because, let's face it, humans are often the weakest link in the security chain.
How so?
Even if you have the most sophisticated security measures in place, a careless employee can accidentally compromise your data.
Oh yeah, like falling for a phishing scam or using a weak password.
Exactly. Or accidentally downloading malware.
So it's not just about technology, it's about human behavior too.
Precisely. And now, Technology Systems recommends doing regular security awareness training for your employees.
Okay, what would that involve?
Teaching them how to recognize phishing scams, how to create strong passwords, how to avoid downloading malicious software, basically giving them the tools they need to be security conscious.
So it's about creating a human firewall as well as a technological one?
Exactly. It's about turning your employees into security assets rather than potential liabilities.
Now, technology systems seems to be really big on the human element of security.
Yeah, they are. They emphasize the importance of creating a security-conscious culture within your organization.
What do you mean by that?
Well, it's about creating an environment where employees feel comfortable reporting potential security issues and asking questions.
So it's about open communication and transparency around security.
Exactly. And that can make a big difference in preventing data breaches.
It's like creating a safety net where everyone is looking out for each other.
Exactly.
So I'm curious, what are some of the security trends that now technology systems sees on the horizon?
Well, they talk about how cyber attacks are becoming increasingly sophisticated.
Okay, that's not surprising.
Hackers are always coming up with new and innovative ways to bypass security measures.
So it's a constant game of cat and mouse.
Exactly. And they also highlight the growing role of artificial intelligence and machine learning in cybersecurity.
AI for security. How does that work?
Well, these technologies can analyze massive amounts of data to detect and respond to threats more effectively than humans can.
So they're like superpowered security analysts.
Precisely. They can spot patterns and anomalies that might go unnoticed by human eyes.
That's pretty impressive.
It's definitely an exciting development in the world of cybersecurity.
So it sounds like the landscape of online security is constantly changing.
Yeah, it is. It's an ever-evolving field.
And now technology systems, they seem to be at the forefront of these changes.
They definitely do. They stress the importance of businesses staying informed about emerging threats and adapting their security strategies accordingly.
So it's not a one-time fix. It's an ongoing process.
Exactly. It's about continuous improvement and always striving to be one step ahead of the bad guys.
It's like a never-ending marathon of security upgrades and vigilance.
Precisely.
So I guess the key takeaway here is that online security is a journey, not a destination.
Absolutely. It's a journey that every business needs to embark on.
And it sounds like now technology systems is a pretty good guide for that journey.
They definitely are. They provide the expertise, the support, and the peace of mind that businesses need to thrive in the digital world.
Well, I think that's a great place to wrap up this part of our deep dive into the world of WordPress security.
Sounds good to me.
We've covered a lot of ground today, from password protection to two-factor authentication to SSL certificates, and we've really explored the importance of finding security solutions that are tailored to your specific business needs.
It's been a comprehensive overview.
And if there's one thing I hope everyone listening takes away from this conversation, it's this: online security is not just about technology.
Right.
It's about people. It's about creating a culture of security within your organization and empowering your employees to be part of the solution.
I couldn't agree more. It's about recognizing that security is everyone's responsibility.
Exactly. And it's about understanding that every step you take, no matter how small, can make a difference in protecting your business and your customers.
Well said.
Now, before we move on to our final thoughts, I want to touch on something that we haven't really addressed yet:
What's that?
the psychological impact of data breaches. We've talked about the financial costs and the reputational damage.
Right.
But what about the emotional toll that these breaches can take on business owners and employees?
That's an important point and one that often gets overlooked.
Yeah.
Data breaches, they can be incredibly stressful experiences. They can make people feel anxious, vulnerable, betrayed.
It's like a violation not just of data, but of trust.
Exactly. And those feelings can linger long after the immediate crisis has passed.
So how can businesses address this emotional side of data breaches?
Well, for starters, it's important to acknowledge that this impact exists.
Okay.
Don't sweep it under the rug. Talk about it. Create a space for people to share their feelings and concerns.
So it's about communication and empathy.
Exactly. And it's also about providing support, whether it's through counseling services or employee assistance programs.
So it's about taking care of your people as well as your data.
Precisely.
Now, technology systems, they actually touch on this in their blog posts.
They do.
They emphasize the importance of having a plan in place for responding to data breaches.
Right. Not just a technical plan, but a human plan, too.
Yes, exactly. It's about having clear communication strategies and support systems in place so you can respond effectively not just to the technical aspects of the breach, but also to the emotional needs of your employees.
It's about taking a holistic approach to security.
Well said.
Yeah.
Now, before we wrap up, I want to ask you a personal question. As a security expert,
Sure.
what's the one piece of advice you would give to every business owner listening today?
That's a tough one. But if I had to choose just one thing, it would be this. Don't wait until it's too late to take security seriously.
Don't be reactive. Be proactive.
Exactly. Cyber attacks are happening all the time, and they're getting more sophisticated every day. No business is immune.
So what's the first step?
Start by assessing your vulnerabilities.
Mm-hmm.
Implement some basic security measures like those we discussed earlier.
Passwords, two-factor authentication, SSL certificates.
Exactly. And educate your employees about security threats and best practices.
Make it a team effort.
Precisely.
So invest in security today, and you'll thank yourself tomorrow.
It's an investment that will pay off in the long run.
Well said.
And remember, you don't have to go it alone. There are experts out there who can help you navigate the complexities of cybersecurity.
Like Now Technology System.
Exactly. They can provide the guidance and support you need to protect your business and your data.
It's like having a security Sherpa to guide you through the treacherous terrain of the digital world.
I like that analogy.
So take control of your security before it takes control of you.
Words to live by.
All right, now it's time for our final thoughts on this topic of WordPress security.
I'm ready.
But first, I want to pose a question to everyone listening.
Okay, let's hear it.
Think about your own website on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being, yikes, I'm a sitting duck,
Right.
and 10 being, Fort Knox, baby.
I love that.
Where would you rate your website's security?
It's time for some honest self-reflection.
Exactly. And once you've given yourself a rating, ask yourself, what's one small step I could take today to nudge that rating up just a little bit?
Even a small improvement can make a big difference.
It might be something as simple as enabling two-factor authentication or choosing a stronger password.
Every little bit counts.
Exactly. And remember, online security, it's not about achieving perfection. It's about continuous improvement and making it just a little bit harder for those bad guys to get in.
Well said. It's about making your website a less appealing target.
Exactly. And with that, we'll wrap up this episode of The Dupe Dive.
Thanks for joining us.
We'll catch you next time for another fascinating exploration of the world around us. Until then, stay curious and stay secure.
See you next time. They really understand the specific challenges that businesses face down under. It's not just generic security advice, it's tailored to the Australian context.
So you get the lay of the land, so to speak.
Exactly. And they really emphasize the importance of complying with those Australian privacy principles we talked about earlier.
Right.
They even go deeper into things like data minimization. Collecting only the information you absolutely need.
Okay.
And secure storage, making sure that data is protected, whether it's in transit or just sitting there on your servers.
It's like they're saying, hey, we get the unique challenges of doing business in Australia, and we're here to help you navigate the online security landscape.
That's a great way to put it. Now, we talked about data breaches earlier, but I'm curious, what are the actual stats? Are small businesses really that vulnerable?
Well, Now Technology Systems actually pulled some data on that.
Oh, really?
And it's a little alarming.
Okay, I'm all ears.
According to a report, they cited over 40% of Australian businesses experienced some kind of cybersecurity incident just in the past year.
Wow, 40%.
And guess what? Small businesses were hit the hardest.
That makes sense. They might not have the same resources as larger companies to invest in security.
Exactly. And get this, the average cost of a data breach for a small business down under, it's estimated to be over $300,000.
That's a staggering amount. It really highlights how important it is for businesses of all sizes, but especially small businesses, to prioritize security.
Right. It's not just about protecting your data. It's about protecting your entire business from potentially crippling financial losses.
Exactly. And the costs go beyond just the immediate financial hit.
Okay. How's that?
There's also the damage to your reputation, the loss of customer trust, the potential legal headaches we talked about earlier.
So it's a ripple effect with potentially long-lasting consequences.
Exactly. It's not something to take lightly.
Now, Technology Systems, they really drive that point home. They argue that investing in security, it's not just an expense, it's an investment in the future of your business.
That's a great way to frame it. It's about protecting your assets, your reputation, your livelihood.
Exactly. All right, so we've covered a lot of ground today. Password protection, two-factor authentication, SSL certificates, understanding the Australian context.
It's been busy.
But are there any other security measures that Now Technology Systems recommends?
Oh, yeah, they have a whole arsenal of tips and tricks.
Like what?
Well, one that really stood out to me was their discussion of intrusion detection and prevention systems.
Intrusion detection and prevention systems. Those sound pretty intense.
Yeah, they are pretty cool. They act like these vigilant guards constantly monitoring your website for any suspicious activity.
So they're like digital watchdogs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They can detect and block malicious traffic before it even reaches your forms, adding yet another layer of protection.
Wow. So is this something that's only available to like big corporations with huge IT budgets?
Not at all. While some of the more advanced systems can be costly, there are also affordable options out there for smaller businesses.
So there's a solution for every budget.
Exactly. And again, think of it this way. The cost of implementing these systems is often way less than the potential cost of a data breach.
That's a good point to keep in mind.
Now, technology systems, they really stress the importance of finding a security solution that's right for your specific business needs.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Definitely. They offer a whole range of services, including website audits, vulnerability assessments, customized security plans.
So it's like having a security expert on call to help you figure out what measures are most important for your particular situation.
Precisely. They can help you identify your weak points, assess your risk tolerance, and implement a strategy that's both effective and manageable.
That sounds incredibly valuable, especially for businesses that maybe don't have in-house expertise in cybersecurity.
Absolutely. It's all about empowering businesses to take control of their online security and protect themselves from the ever-evolving threat landscape.
Well, it sounds like now technology systems has really covered all the bases when it comes to securing WordPress forms and websites in general.
They've provided a really comprehensive guide that's both practical and insightful.
Yeah, and I really appreciate their focus on the Australian context and their commitment to empowering businesses to take control of their own online security.
It's refreshing to see a company that's not just selling products, but offering genuine guidance and support.
Now, before we wrap things up, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier about the psychological impact of data breaches.
Okay.
We talked about the financial costs, the reputational damage.
Right.
But what about the emotional toll on business owners and employees?
That's an important aspect that often gets overlooked. Data breaches can be incredibly stressful and even traumatic experiences.
I can imagine.
Business owners might feel a sense of responsibility, guilt, even betrayal.
Yeah, it's like a violation not just of data, but of trust.
Exactly. And employees might worry about the security of their own personal information or even the future of their jobs.
It's a lot to process.
It is. And the psychological impact can linger long after the immediate crisis has passed.
So what can businesses do to address this emotional side of data breaches?
Well, first and foremost, acknowledge that this impact exists. Don't sweep it under the rug.
Okay.
Create a space for people to talk about their feelings, their concerns.
So open communication is key.
Exactly. And provide support, whether it's through counseling services or employee assistance programs.
So it's about taking care of your people as well as your data.
Precisely. Now, technology systems, they touch on this in their blog posts as well.
Oh, really?
They emphasize the importance of having a plan in place for responding to data breaches.
Right, not just a technical plan, but a human plan too.
Exactly. It's about having clear communication strategies and support systems in place so that you can respond effectively, not just to the technical aspects of a breach, but also to the emotional needs of your employees.
So it's about taking a holistic approach to security, one that considers both the technical and the human elements.
Exactly. Security is about people as much as it is about technology.
Well said. Now, before we move on to our final thoughts, I want to ask you a personal question. As a security expert, what's the one piece of advice you would give to every business owner listening today?
That's a great question. If I had to pick just one thing, I'd say don't wait until it's too late to take security seriously.
Don't be reactive, be proactive.
Exactly. Cyber attacks are becoming increasingly common and they're getting more sophisticated every day. No business is immune.
So take action now.
Exactly. Start by assessing your vulnerabilities. Implement some basic security measures like those we discussed earlier.
Passwords, two-factor authentication, SSL certificates.
Right. It's about building a strong foundation.
And educate your employees about security threats and best practices.
Absolutely. Make security a team effort.
So invest in security today, and you'll thank yourself tomorrow.
It's an investment that will pay off in the long run. It's about protecting your business, your data, your peace of mind.
Yes, it's easy to push those things aside when you're juggling a million other things.
Exactly. But now, technology systems, they really seem to get that.
Yeah.
They don't just overwhelm you with technical jargon. They actually empower you to make informed decisions about your security.
It's like they're saying, hey, we're not just here to sell you something. We're here to be your partner in this whole online security thing.
Exactly. They understand that every business is different with its own unique needs and risks.
It's not a one-size-fits-all situation.
Definitely. And that's where their expertise really shines. They can help businesses of all sizes figure out their vulnerabilities, find the right tools and strategies, and actually implement a security plan that works for them.
So it's about finding solutions that are practical and sustainable in the long run.
Exactly. And you know what else impressed me about them?
What's that?
They're really good at explaining these complex technical concepts in plain English.
Oh, yeah, I noticed that too. They don't make you feel like you need a PhD in computer science to understand what they're talking about.
Exactly. It's refreshing to find experts who can break things down without talking down to you.
And at the end of the day, I think that's what makes them stand out. They're not just selling products. They're selling peace of mind.
Couldn't agree more.
So let's say I'm a business owner listening to this and I'm thinking, okay, I need to step up my security game. How do I connect with now technology systems.
Well, their website is a great place to start.
Okay. And I'm guessing they've got like contact info and stuff there.
Definitely. They have tons of resources, blog posts, case studies, and you can even reach out to their team directly through their contact form.
Fantastic. So it's just a click away.
Exactly. And based on what we've discussed today, I have a feeling they'd be more than happy to answer any questions and point you in the right direction.
Awesome. So to wrap things up, here's the big question for everyone listening. Think about your own website. If you had to give it a security rating on a scale of 1 to 10.
1 to 10.
With 1 being, yikes, I'm a sitting duck. And 10 being, Fort Knox, baby.
Haha. I love those analogies.
Where would your website fall on that scale?
Time for some honest self-assessment.
And once you've got that number in your head, ask yourself, what's one small step I can take today to bump that rating up just a little bit?
It doesn't have to be a huge overhaul, just one small improvement.
Maybe it's enabling two-factor authentication or choosing a stronger password.
Right. Those small steps can make a big difference in the long run.
Exactly. It's all about continuous improvement. And remember, online security, it's not about achieving perfection. It's about making it just a little bit harder for those bad guys to get in.
Well said. It's about making your website less appealing to attackers.
Exactly. And with that, we'll wrap up this episode of The Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us.
It's been a pleasure.
And we'll see you next time for another deep dive into a fascinating topic. Until then, stay curious and stay secure.
See you next time.